Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, Jade Colorist. Happy to have you here today. This is going to be a short video. We are continuing our collection of coloring book series where we're taking a quick look at all of my books that I have. And today's category are watercolor books. So these are coloring books that have actual watercolor paper in them. So you can use any wet mediums. And I'll let you know what I have found with each book, and we'll get cracking right away. We're going to go smallest to largest as per usual. We are going to start with Woodland Watercolor, a coloring workbook, and it's by Claire Teresa Gray. She does have a second book that is currently out. It is quite pricey though, so I have not purchased it. This one is her original book. It's printed on premium 200 GSM watercolor paper. So that's the first thing to know, is it is actually on true watercolor paper. The paper at the beginning is not. This is printed and copyrighted in 2023. So it's a couple years old, but not super old. So the first bit in the book is what kind of mediums you can use, watercolor pencils and watercolors. Talks about how to get started, and then it jumps right into actual watercolor paper. And again, this is 200 GSM. These are single-sided, and it is a image that has no grayscale. It's just the image. So this is one that I have actually completed, and I believe this was actually my first one done in this book, so pretty happy with how that turned out. This is what the pages looked pre-clean or pre-printed but not painted on. You can see that there was fully covered on this page, nothing seeped through, and I did use not a ton of water, but I definitely used some water. No warping on the paper, so that is the big difference. This paper is true watercolor paper, so it has some sizing on it, so that allows the watercolor to move. And yeah, so there is that bunch of different colors. This is mainly all nature scenes, so I did this, and this one even has a little bit of sparkle on the bee's wings, and I believe there is a video on this one. And this I did with the Ecoline brush pens, and I had a video recently on those. So there's that. All kinds of cute flora and pictures with both flora and little animals on it. So this is definitely a nature kind of thing. Here's another page that kind of has just a bunch of small camping gear on it, and I used Inktense pencils and Finetec paint, so there's a little bit of difference on there. And then this next one, I actually did this with pastels, so pencils that are pastel pencils, and this was for a challenge I did for the Coloring Roulette challenge, and it was done in January of 2024, so it was for my February episode 7 in the Coloring Roulette series that I had here on my channel for a while. And I've kept this covered, but it's probably fine, but I will just cover it back up. Pastel works well on watercolor paper because there's quite a bit of tooth and it's quite textured. So yeah, so good paper choice for pastel work. And those are all the pages that I have done. But as you can see, this is a very nice book. I will continue to work in here. It's got some beautiful pictures, and I just need to get back to it. So yes, this is my first watercolor book that I want to share with you, and I highly do recommend this book. The next two books I have are both by the same illustrator, and it's Jade Gedeon. And so I've got the Rainforest Escape and the Island Escape, my Caribbean coloring book. So I'll tell you right now that this watercolor paper is quite a bit different. It says it's colored on high quality one-sided perforated watercolor paper. And so these ones I have actually removed before doing, and The paper is technically watercolor paper, but it's not great. It's very kind of like, it feels like handmade paper, so it has kind of a very different feel, and it was copyrighted in 2016. So I got this back in 2016 when I first started coloring. So I had thought that I would want to watercolor and learn watercolors, and it wasn't the book to learn on. So I did keep a couple of the pictures, and I started a page, but I quickly gave up on it. So there's a bunch of different scenes. There's a bunch of pages like this that are folded over that you pull out, and like I mentioned, every page is perforated. So they are interesting pages. And now that I have more than just watercolor, I have acrylics and pastels, like gelatos and stuff like that, and alcohol markers. I may come back to this book and use it more as a mixed media book instead of a watercolor book, because yeah, the paper just does not feel like actual watercolor paper, and it's the pictures are nice. They're just it's not what I was expecting, so I was a little bit disappointed, and my skill level definitely is not ready for this kind of paper. So I don't know that I would recommend either of these two books. I did work in this book. I will show you the Island Escape book. It is also by Jade Gedeon. I have nothing against this illustrator herself or himself. Again, it was 2016 published, and I got these off of Amazon, so I wasn't able to look at them or understand at that time in 2016. I've learned a lot about paper in the last 9 years, but this one had a lot more buildings and also some patterns like this. There are a few, there's a few pull-out pages like this, but most of the pages are just one single-sided. There's a section and it's a lot of buildings, so it wasn't really what I was kind of looking for. But again, there weren't previews of everybody's coloring books back then. So again, the paper is not high quality watercolor paper, even though it says that on the book. So I would not recommend for actual watercolor both Island Escape or Rainforest Escape. These could be good for, like I said, mixed media or acrylic or gouache, those kind of things, if you just wanted to have fun and do mixed media in, because I think those would be fun, and that's why I've kind of kept them, but I wouldn't have purchased them if I had seen them in person. This next book I almost forgot about, and that's because it is a completed book. This is Mandala Bliss, Volume 3. It is by Jennifer Stay of Coloring Bliss, and she is the artist in it, and I purchased it from the Coloring Bliss website. I had it printed on watercolor paper. It is spiral bound on the top, so that's really nice, and you can get any of her books printed on their watercolor paper. Now, just so you know, their watercolor paper is cold press, 146 GSM, so it's good enough to go through their printer, but it's not super sized. Water does work well on here. It doesn't really bleed through unless you're pretty heavy on it, but I will go ahead and do a quick flip through of this one so you can see kind of what it is, but just remember that any of her books can be printed on this paper. So if you really enjoy using watercolor, then certainly that is an option over at Coloring Bliss. I will leave her website. I am not affiliated, nor do I have any links over there, but I'll just do that in the description for you for ease. I started this June of 2019, and I finished it in May of 2022. So at the beginning of the book, you get a little description of the Bliss watercolor paper. It's 90 pound, 146 GSM. It says it's sizing treatment, cold press, and acid free. I'm going to actually flip it sideways so that I can just keep flipping. It's single-sided. This is Mandala's. So I have gone ahead and I've used both watercolor mediums and sometimes I've used gel pen on top. Sometimes I've used gelato in the background. I've used metallic watercolors and then some metallic gel pens. So we'll quickly flip through that. This one, it looks like I've done some kind of iridescent medium on top of the watercolor, and it looks like some gel pen. The mandalas are quite nice. I did enjoy them. I did have fun. I used ink tints on this one. So I did have fun. I did finish them all off. This one I used brush pens, so watercolor brush pens. These are probably the Arteza ones, or Arteza, and I do not recommend those ones. This is Paul Rubens and ink metallic and Neocolor 2, it says, and then a silver gel pen. I did enjoy coming on top of, once I was finished using the metallic gel pens. It worked quite well, and I could draw a little design, like here in the center I drew a design. This one I was trying to do a bunch of wet on wet, so I was trying to make these blooms, and it did work, and it didn't bleed through the paper. Like, I used a lot of water on this one, and there is a little bit of buckling, but not very much. So definitely this the Coloring Bliss watercolor paper, even though it's thin and not super high quality, it is much better than some of the books that I previously showed you. So I would order from them again. I used some Fine Tech Gold Paul Rubens and Neocolor 2 on this one, it says. So yeah, I used lots. Very shiny, this one. That's kind of fun. Oh, missed a page. This one I added a bunch of circles. It looks like I must have had some kind of stencil that I used. And then a little bit more about Jennifer Stay. So that's the Mandala Bliss Volume 3. And again, I had it printed on watercolor paper. The next two books are the Watercolor with Me in the Ocean by Dana Fox. These are instructional books, and so I do recommend these. These again don't have super great high quality watercolor paper in them. They are good enough for a beginner to learn, but what I would suggest is taking the techniques that they teach you, the wet on wet, wet on dry, ink and wash, step-by-step things, and teaching you some basics in watercolor, and taking what you learn and practice on actual watercolor. So get maybe a watercolor sketchbook and practice there. But I did do this. So this is Jody, and this is me trying to learn. And so these again are on pre-printed, the images lightly on here. This is the watercolor paper. I did this many years ago, so August 2022. It talks about here, so it says the sea turtle, and there are 7 steps to completing this. Gives you a color chart, supplies. So it is quite good instructional wise, but it is very basic. But that's kind of what I need to start with. I am not an expert. And then this is a humpback whale that I did. There is a little bit of warping, and you can see ghosting. So it is not super heavy duty watercolor paper. There is not a lot of sizing on here. The hermit crab I did. So the images themselves, the shark, and this is a sea otter. So I did this one actually with coffee, and if you notice, this is quite warped, so it definitely doesn't handle a lot of water. And then the next one, so this is the penguin. I haven't done that, so I just want to show you a couple of pages so you can see how lightly the image is actually drawn on there. You have a colored image over here, so you're kind of trying to recreate the image here using the steps that they use, and there generally are only 5 to 7 steps, so these are quick little things, quick little images to do. And this whole book is about items that are in the ocean, so those are the kind of items in here. I do recommend this book, but I also recommend you getting an actual watercolor paper if you truly want to practice and learn watercolor. It's just fun to kind of fill these in. And I will probably use this book again with maybe my Ecoline brush markers or some Inktense and play around with that. So that is Watercolor with Me in the Ocean by Dana Fox. And her second book, or the other book that I have, she has 3 total books. I'm not going to get the third book. I find this is plenty for me. This next one is Watercolor with Me in the Forest. And the one that I did here is acorns, and I did the acorns here. The paper feels quite textured and almost damaged, almost like it pilled while I was doing it. I also went ahead and drew the image from here onto watercolor paper, and this one is fluid cold pressed paper, and it was 300 GSM, and it held up much better, and I found I was able to do and get a better result with the actual watercolor paper. So just so that you know, again, at the beginning, there's an introduction. These are all the colors that you'll use in the whole book. So it basically uses the Cotman series, the beginner series, color paints or color palette. And I did this tree, and I was just having fun. And I also did this with coffee. And I was trying to use some different brushes on here to do different textures. So I wasn't using this book strictly to just follow the tree. I was trying to branch out a little bit and learn. But there are flowers in this one, ladybugs, caterpillars, the fawn, again, very lightly drawn here. And this one is going to be 3 colors. Again, this one is 6 steps. So it is nice that it tells you the supplies, the colors, and the steps to do it. But getting to this in 6 steps with this lightly drawn image, yeah, it's good that it's further on in the book, because that's pretty hard to do. It does have leaves. So all really anything in the forest are covered in this book. All right, the last one I have is a lot bigger. So I'm just going to have to kind of move it up and down without changing the camera much. This is by Christy Rice. This is Painterly Days, the Woodland Watercolor Book for Adults. It's 25 woodland illustrations, and it says it's printed on Luxe watercolor paper, ready for you to paint. Now, I got this thinking, oh great, I followed Christy Rice on YouTube for a little while. She does have a foreword. She is a watercolor artist herself. There are all kinds of botanicals, succulent birds, figs, berries, and it does give you some information on each of those kind of sections. It is a book that has a cardboard fold-out cover here. So it was done in 2016. So again, I got this years ago, and it is double-sided. So you have the same image on this side as you have on this side. You can put the flap down and then paint right in the book. These are also, it's glue bound, but they come out really easily, so you could just remove it from the book. I did try doing some watercolor on here. It did not bleed through, but it is not great watercolor paper. Again, I was expecting, I guess, more than I received on this. So I do not recommend this book either if you're actually someone who uses watercolor paper and wants to do things. The pictures were also not what I was kind of expecting. So all I've done is used this book so far as kind of fun playtime, putting a little bit of color down and just seeing if I can make things move and that kind of stuff. If I, tested out some lifting techniques and those kind of things. But it's definitely just another book that probably I shouldn't have bought, because I really was not capable of doing these kind of things. And the paper, again, got me frustrated. And then I just kind of put my watercolors away for quite a while. So, and that's what's discouraging, is when you have something that you want to do, you spend some money on, and then you get disappointed. I do get discouraged and then put it away, and then you feel bad because you've got this sitting on your shelf. So if you have a book that you purchased that you felt disappointed in, I suggest you get out any kind of medium. Don't limit yourself to just the watercolor medium that you had. Get out any kind of medium and just go to town and have some fun, because at least then we'd be using our books. We can't treat them as precious objects. They're here for our enjoyment and our creativity. So this book I do recommend, highly recommend. It is on 200 GSM paper, so that is a little bit thicker. Again, it's not the best, but the pictures are darling, and for the purposes, I was able to get some results that I was happy with. And I think I will leave you with that book. Thank you so much for joining me on this series. It's got me looking at all of my books in a slightly different light, and I think that's positive, because I think we all have books in our collection that we scratch our heads about why we bought, and then maybe it's time to take them off our shelves and either gift them to somebody else who will use them, or, like I said, break out some mediums that don't belong in that book, but just go to town and have some fun. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you're having a super weekend, and I hope you do something creative with your time. Take care for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.